Wahoo! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all creatures great and small, it is time for another episode of the No Feed Survival Guide. My name is Mike to the Y. Why? Because I'm celebrating. I got 1,000 downloads now, so it's no Joe Rogan or Megan Kelly or whomever you want to pick, but I'm happy with 1,000. And what is next? That is the theme for today's talk. 1,000 downloads, now what? So, for those who maybe you get to see me for the first time, I'm on video now. So, hopefully, what I can do is get this uploaded so you can hear my voice and see my face for whatever it's worth. I'm down a few pounds since we last talked. I'm down about 40 pounds now. So, feeling pretty good. Had a bit of a hospital stay back in October. But, once again, this is my first podcast since February. So, seeing that I got to 1,000 downloads, I feel the need to really start ramping this up, and hopefully I can do this on a weekly basis, talk to you, find people who have downloaded me thus far. Of course, when you see my face on YouTube, you may not want to go too much further, but that's your decision. I'm not gonna poo-poo that, or I'm just gonna be a boy in his microphone. So, and by the way, for those of you who may not know, all the other episodes I have done so far has basically been a boy in his microphone. So, and for those of you wondering, there's the microphone. So hopefully you will hear my dulcet tone voice, and now you get to see me too. So, like I said, for whatever that's worth. So, what has happened since I last talked to you in February? And I believe that was the one where I recited the Holy Rosary. And I must say that hopefully for those of you that are Catholic, or even if you're not Catholic, that you pray every day. And I've done my best to do so. I have certainly not 100%, but praying the rosary every day is really giving me a calming effect. And we'll get to how I stopped doing that for a little while up until recently. Once again, I'm trying to do the rosary every day here. So, excuse me. But it's had a very calming effect on me as I was released from my regular position. And I won't disclose where. I'm not going to go into the details of that because, again, that's kind of my business. But I will say that I've been working on several side hustles to kind of keep me floating about, and hopefully this is another one, and this can be a real inspiration, because what I'm looking to do as far as future podcasts go is start analyzing news items and giving it my little spin on them. For those of you who are wondering, I am mostly conservative. I do share a couple of liberal, not progressive viewpoints. So I do occasionally go a little bit left of center, but not too far. Most of it is a conservative, libertarian point of view. So we'll see what happens with that. I think you'll have interest in my opinion, at the very least, and I welcome the arguments, of course. So, but we'll go over several topics, stuff that's in the news, and, you know, there's a lot of hatred, unfortunately, going around in the world. And my intention from the beginning was just to, one, tell my story, and two, to have people not... Hatred gets you nowhere, is what I'm trying to say. Love for oneself, love for other people, that is what can keep you going. And of course, doing things like hard work, discipline, that's all part of the success, and just knowing how to figure things out when you are faced with an adversity. And the point of the first season of the podcast was to go over a lot of the stuff that had happened to me and how I overcame it. That God blessed me with a sense of humor. God blessed me with a brain that, sometimes I don't use, but He gave me a brain to help figure things out and to keep pushing forward. And it's not going to get... none of that was done with hatred. Hating God or hating other people or even hating myself, even though a lot of the challenges that I went through have been self-destructive. So it just wasn't a question of hating myself, but yeah, just making a lot of dumb decisions that led me to my double amputation 11 years apart and a kidney transplant in between, and going through the medical challenges that I have gone through in the last couple of months. So one thing I'm trying to do to help love myself is be a slimmer version of myself. And I'm kind of glad I'm doing the video now. And I do have one from before when I was at Podfest back in January. Just have no earthly idea how to download it and get it over to my podcast partners who help publish this to Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, etc., etc. So, but in any event, yeah, what a stark difference it was, because at Podfest back in January, I was probably around 265, 270 pounds at 6 feet tall with the legs on, 4 feet 7 without them. So yeah, you can imagine this face covered a lot more area. So in any event, yeah, I decided to... It wasn't healthy for me in any aspect. So one of the biggest things I did to lose weight over the past 11 months is just cutting out a lot of the bread. I mean, I think I had bread with every meal in some form or another, and a lot of cutting that out and just drinking a little bit healthier as far as like non-adult beverages go. Getting a lot of water in, so that is a good thing. Right now, I'm probably between 225 and 230, which is my license weight from back when I was 16 or 17. So I'm a super happy camper with that. If I lose a little more, I'm not gonna poo-poo that or anything. So what else has been new? So, once again, just to kind of reiterate, for those of you for my 1,000 downloaders, and for those who may be repeating or coming in for the first time, I have no producer. I have no staff. I am the staff. I am the producer. And it is coming in unedited. So all the ums and the ers and the whatnots, I'm keeping them for now until we get a little bit bigger, and then, we can look into the future as far as getting things produced, edited, etc., etc. So this is the unfiltered me. This is the unedited me. So once again, take it for what it's worth. But I'm so happy and I'm so grateful to the 1,000 people that have downloaded this podcast thus far. It's once again been very cathartic for me as far as telling my story, and hopefully someone out there who, and believe me, there's going to be plenty of people that are in worse shape than I am. Considering all that's happened to me, I'm doing pretty good. And enjoying doing something like this, doing some of the side stuff I've been doing, some voiceover stuff, been hosting trivia for almost 3 years at a couple bars in the Columbus, Ohio area, in case you're wondering where I'm at. Like, Buckeyes, so. But there's Buckeye fans everywhere. But I am in Columbus, so. Well, I can talk about Ohio State football real quick. And yeah, that was an ugly game against Indiana. Indiana deserves, that number one spot. So I pretty much think you play that game 50 times, it's probably going to be 25-25. Because both sides made mistakes. It was an old school Big Ten game where it was just grinding it out, who made the fewest mistakes, and it was a coin flip, for lack of a better term. So not disappointed that Ohio State lost. I was actually kind of guessing they were going to be the number 3 seed instead of the number 2 seed. Fine and dandy, that doesn't bother me one way or the other. So, good luck, Buckeyes. Let's get some back-to-back championships going. We haven't had one in a while, I don't think. I think Alabama might have been the last one, but I'm not sure. I should have looked that up. But again, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, as it were. I was just too happy to get that 1,000th download and share with you what's been going on since February. So, again, as you may have guessed, I am a diabetic, and a lot of the choices I have made have led to catastrophic injuries and cuttings off and addings to and things like that. So, back, it had to have been late summer, one of the things that I end up getting by taking anti-rejection pills is it lowers my immune system to certain things. The biggest thing was getting adult acne. So I had a pretty decent sized zit on my inner thigh. So I won't tell you how far up or how far down, but it's the inner thigh. And naturally, being the dumbbell that I am, I tried to pop it. And when I did, it grew bigger and bigger, and somehow after a couple of weeks, I was able to kind of dissipate that growth by using rubbing alcohol, just trying to keep it clean and putting gauze bandages on it when it was draining like crazy. So come end of September, I would say, I ended up getting the same kind of zit on the back of my neck. And it just felt gross, to put it mildly. Hopefully nobody's eating while they're watching this or drinking or whatever. But yeah, the same kind of thing happened where it ended up growing about the size of a baseball, if you can imagine that. So I had gone up to Cleveland, it's about the second weekend of October, to run a couple little errands. For those of you outside the area, that's about a 2-hour drive to and from. And I really felt that growth pressing against my neck, against my nerves. Almost felt like I was going to press up against my veins and I was going to somehow have a stroke because of this. So on the way home from Cleveland, I stopped at the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center and was kept in the ER Sunday night at 8 until about Tuesday at 6. And this was Columbus Day weekend, or for those who are a certain political ilk, Indigenous Persons Day, whatever. But needless to say, come Monday morning, probably around 4 in the morning, so I had been there for a good 8 or 9 hours. Somebody had come in and tried to numb this down a little bit and suck a lot of the yucky stuff that was building up in here. And remember, it was the size of a baseball. She drained a significant amount out of it, but it hurt like hell. And I've got a pretty good tolerance for pain, but this was torture, to say the least. So we were waiting for a regular room that was not an ER. And of course, with that being the holiday weekend, a lot of the regular staff was off. So all sorts of bureaucratic fun stuff going on until Tuesday about 6 o'clock. And they finally got me in a room, and yeah, they told me I had MRSA. And basically, if I had waited any longer, yeah, that would have... I wouldn't be here today to enjoy my 1000th podcast. Shameless plug once again. So, I ended up spending 9 days in the hospital, mostly because they had given me a IV drip of antibiotics to try and get this growth shrunk down. So, very nice doctor was coming in every day to kind of drain some of that out, and it was a slow go. I basically ended up spending 9 days in the hospital. And for anybody who's spent more than an overnight stay or an outpatient, 9 days is not as fun as it sounds. So, anyway, they ended up giving me some antibiotic pills because it was down enough where I could go home and take these pills and hopefully things dissipated. Let me tell you, when I started taking those pills after I got home, this thing shrunk like crazy. I mean, it was just draining, and it, for the most part, healed. There's still like a little bump back there. You know, I'm sure like nobody would probably really recognize it, but I know it, and that's all that matters, at least at this point. But yeah, that was another scare, and that was kind of a partial motivation to come back on and talk to you guys about what had happened to me. But slowly but surely with the podcast after February when I did the rosary, it started trickling up, download here, download there. And I was getting pretty jazzed up when it got to like 990. I think that was like last month. And then getting one here, one there. And finally today being the 14th of December, the year of our Lord 2025, that I got number 1000. So it motivated me to do this, another impromptu podcast, because, yeah, quite frankly, outside of a couple of them, they've all kind of been impromptu and just doing a stream of consciousness of my thoughts and actions and what I've done. So, yeah, I think in the future podcasts, I'll try and do a little more structure, because I do want to help analyze some of the news of the day, because the opinions are quite frankly all over the place. And a lot of the opposite side isn't going to see what their side is doing as opposed to the other side. Because right now, both sides of the political aisle are splintered. Big time. And we've come to an interesting point in history, my friends. At least in my opinion. And having read Revelations a couple of times from the Bible, I'm getting more and more convinced every day that we are heading to that point. So, I'm not sure what to make of it other than to keep my faith up and to honor God and to kind of block out all the other noise that's going on. So hopefully what I bring to you is a Christian Catholic perspective as a lifelong Catholic. Some of that does go beyond the dogma, if you will. So, and again, that's kind of, some of it's kind of a legal standpoint as opposed to a spiritual standpoint. But I think there's some necessary evils that need to be present, I guess, so that we know to do the right thing. But knowing that the option is there. So, and forgive me for I'm probably sounding very cryptic right now, and a lot of you are probably bored to tears by seeing me stand still and not do a whole lot of head movement or arm movement or anything like that. So, it's just me talking to you. And hopefully this is more or less of a one-sided conversation with you. And by the way, if you do have any comments, questions, anything like that from any of my episodes, please email me at miketothey@gmail.com. Put the subject "no feet" in the comments. Tell me if I stink. Tell me, hey, this is pretty interesting. Let's hear some more. Or if you have any questions about my medical history, the things I've talked about in previous episodes, I welcome it all, and I will do my very best to answer each and every question that people may have. Or, if you're going to critique. Don't go into name calling, and because I basically have heard it all before. So those ones I'm just not going to answer because that's basically answering back to, shall we say, mentally challenged people. And I'll leave it at that. You know, which kind of gets me to how a lot of normal people have kind of gone off the deep end, or just the fact that we have more exposure to some of this behavior. And, you know, Instagram's probably the best example of what I've seen in the worst of some people. So, and it leads me to think that maybe we're closer to the end than we may think. I can't say that for sure, obviously, because, you know, only the good Lord above knows that answer. And you're never going to know. You know, one day he may come down and say, hey, all my good people, come on home. Hopefully I'm one of them. And I'll strive to do better every day and not let that evil side, that hateful side come out. I'm going to be a smarty pants. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, just the hate for a certain political party, a hate for a country or a group of people, that's just not going to get us anywhere. I mean, if we want to be better human beings, the biggest thing we need to do, one, is listen. Two, make an argument for your side. And do it with facts and thoughts instead of emotions. Because I think there's the emotional side of people, and especially the bad emotional side of people, is really getting to be most prevalent now. And that is so unfortunate, because God gave us thoughts and feelings. We need to use both. And venting your general anger just for the sake of being angry, that's no good. If you think something is wrong, say, hey, I don't agree with this, and here's why. And here's a possible better solution. And hopefully that's something I can help contribute to the pod universe, the Podfest universe, or the podcast universe. I'm going to Podfest next month. So for those of you who are downloading this and are going to be in Orlando next month, a hearty hello to you, and I will see you all next month at Podfest. So, and I get to try a little more stand-up comedy on that one, which, oh, that was so much fun to do. So, and hopefully I can bring a recording of that so you can judge for yourself. Hey, is this something I might be able to do and give it a real shot at, doing, instead of 3 minutes, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however much time they would graciously allow me. So that's going to be about it for tonight. So again, thank you, 1,000 times thank you for the 1,000th download. The next goal, 1,001, then 1,002. And hopefully we could get it up to 2,000, get it up to 5,000, 10,000. But I got to make sure I'm here every week to talk to y'all. So this is the start of something good, I hope. And you listen to me and think, hey, that guy, He's all right. You know, he's got a couple kooky ideas, but he's got some good ones too. So, and I may be preaching to a lot of choirs out there, so who knows. But so far, I've enjoyed the ride of having this podcast, and there will be some more, hopefully. I will try my best to keep this up, keep it to a short amount of time, so you know, you can listen to me in the car on the way to work or on the way home or wherever you're heading to, and get some thoughts in your head, hopefully make you smile a little bit, because believe it or not, I am a funny guy. I'm a nice guy. I'll get in the Rodney impersonations and Don Rickles and whomever else I can impress, so, or do impressions of. But I want to thank you again for the 1,000 downloads. Hopefully, now that you've seen my face, it's like, well, it may have nowhere to go but up. We'll find out. But thank you again so much for the 1,000 downloads. Hopefully, we can make our way to doing 1 million more. A boy and his microphone, you never know what can happen. But, like I said, feedback I absolutely appreciate one way or the other. Mike to the Y at gmail.com. That's MIKETOTHE, the letter Y. Or as the telemarketers go, Mike to they at gmail.com. So make sure you put no feet in the comments, or in the subject rather. You can put it in the comments too. So, but thank you guys again. I love each and every one of you who has downloaded, good, bad, or ugly. But thank you again. I will hopefully see you next Monday for some more fun, frolic, and shenanigans. So, as I always say at my trivia games, at the end of the night, be the surprise onion ring in somebody's french fries. Thank you guys. Have a good night, and I'll see you later.